the dark, kindle the spark in me.
I'm not going to eat those now. But I'm not telling you that I'm not eating this popcorn because I need your applause. It's probably not wise of me at this point in the day to have an extra snack. I've had plenty of snacks in my lifetime. I really don't need more food. But what I also don't need is other people applauding me or giving me a high five or going, way to go, because they know I've intentionally chosen not to have a snack. I mean, really, if I'm doing things, if I'm making choices about what I eat or don't eat, what I do or don't do based on what I think other people are going to think of me and whether they will be impressed with me because I have the self-restraint not to eat extra cheese popcorn when I don't need any, it kind of says something pretty insecure is going on inside me, that I am so concerned about what other people think, right? I think that's what's going on when Jesus talks about how we fast, or even why people would fast. So here in this latest episode of Flicker, we're going to continue moving on in what we now call the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus turns to a subject that we don't have a lot of maybe direct day-by-day experience with, because our culture doesn't talk about fasting very much. And in some pockets of Christian circles, it's still an important part of faith practice. For a lot of us, fasting is one of those weird kind of like, I don't get it. What's the point? Why would I do it? So for a moment, let's set aside the cheese popcorn for a moment, but to think about the spiritual practice of fasting, maybe kind of similarly to why I do or don't grab a snack in the middle of the afternoon right now. So fasting is the practice, the intentional, chosen practice of going without something. Often it's going without food, maybe food and water, in whatever period of time you might choose. It might be every day I choose not to eat during so-and-so hours. It might be during the particular season of your life or time you want to focus on something else, and so I'm going to refrain from eating any food or just some food. Some people are used to the practice in the season in the church year called Lent of giving up. I won't eat chocolate or I won't eat ice cream during the days of Lent. And in some ways, these are all kinds of fasts. Well, in Jesus' day, fasting is a regular part of just good old-fashioned Second Temple Judaism. If you're a good, faithful Jew, it's quite possible that you would have seasons in your life where you would have a ritual fast. These are things that were usually prescribed for a certain number of days or a certain time. Sometimes it was connected with prayer. Sometimes it was connected with praying for God's direction or discernment or answering a question you were bringing to God. But there's this sense of fasting, of going without food being an important part of people's spiritual practice. Now, Jesus assumes that his listeners, who again are all first century Jewish, that they are fasting as a part of their worship and devotional life. Jesus assumes they are. So he says not, hey, if you ever decide to fast. He says, when you fast, assuming that his followers are continuing the practice of fasting. When you fast, don't make a big fuss about it. Don't call attention to yourself. Don't go moping around going, oh, I don't get to have any snacks, right? If that's my attack, if I go for the popcorn in the cabinet and look at this and then look at you and go, oh, no, I'll be strong. I won't eat the popcorn. It's so delicious, but I must be strong and I won't have it. I'm really just baiting for your applause. And Jesus says, what's the point of that? Are we really that insecure that we need to get other people's approval all the time? So Jesus says maybe don't do things for that reason. Now, for some in the Christian family, that has ended up meaning sort of well, then what's the point? We don't need to fast at all. After all, if I don't need to do anything to impress God in the first place, if I don't have to do anything or say anything or avoid eating this to make God love me, what would be the point? Why would I ever give up on eating delicious food? It's delicious. Well, maybe there's value in keeping the practice of, from time to time, receiving the gift of nothing. And that's really what fasting is, in a sense. It's not about trying to score points with anybody else or with God. Like, God, look, I'm going without this stuff. Now give me other prizes. It's more about what happens when we interrupt our routines, when we let our regular day-by-day lives be interrupted with a pause, with a, I'm not going to do this thing I usually do. I'm going to go without as a way, number one, of reminding me what is and isn't my God, what is and isn't what sustains me. If I can't go a day without drinking a cup of coffee, which sounds very scary some days to me, but if I can't go a day without drinking coffee, it sounds an awful lot like I've given a lot of control in my life to this caffeinated beverage, instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to be okay. I can live without coffee. If I get so much in a routine of I need to eat Big Macs at a certain frequency in my life, and my world goes into chaos, my goodness, that's not a great way to build your life around things. And so from time to time, fasting is one of those ways of putting the brakes on and reminding ourselves what does and doesn't, what should and shouldn't have our deepest allegiance and what we build our lives on. The other thing that fasting can be really helpful for, interestingly enough, is in shaking us out of our complacency. Because basically a fast is an interruption of the usual order. If you're used to having 3 square meals a day and you go for a week or for 2 weeks with going, I'm just going to eat 1 meal a day, or I'm just going to have very, very simple, meager meals, that has a way of changing our routine, of shaking us up out of the habits and the patterns we get into that so often become complacent. And honestly, I think that's where the whole of the Bible sees value in this thing, this practice called fasting. It's not about how do I get other people's attention, but how do I use fasting to get my attention to the things I've been ignoring. So a prophet by the name of Isaiah, later in the book of Isaiah, says, you know what kind of fast God cares about? God doesn't really care about what you do or don't eat. That's fine. If that's for your sake, your need, go for it. But the kind of fast God cares about is how about you quit oppressing your workers, and how about you make sure people are paid a fair wage, and how about you welcome those who are relatives or neighbors and who are hungry, welcome the homeless poor in your family, and undo the yoke of injustice wherever it is. God says that's the fast I care about. So if you're going to make a big fuss about fasting, how about do those kinds of things? In other words, fasting can be helpful as a way of shaking us out of our complacency and the ways we've gotten just sort of used to, other people are being mistreated, there's other homeless people, what are they going to do? Sometimes fasting has a way of jarring me out of my usual routine so that I see things I've gotten used to, and because they're just in my face all the time, I stop recognizing them. So I want to suggest, maybe in this day, that you take the time. Think about, are there things in my life where I've gotten so comfortable with the routine of them, I need to have them shaken up. Not because I'm trying to impress God. Not because, God, did you notice that I'm not eating the popcorn? This is because I love you, Jesus. Jesus doesn't really care, at least about that. But it's possible when I choose to set aside, I'm not going to eat this food, or I'm not going to eat these kind of meals, or I'm going to take the money I would have spent on going out to eat and use it to feed someone who's hungry. That has a way of changing, shocking me, rearranging my priorities. And maybe that's exactly what I need, even on a regular, ordinary afternoon like this. Maybe it's time to just put the snacks away for a while. See you next time here on Flickr. Bye.